And welcome, folks, to a very special edition of RSF Radio. You know what that new Challenger sound means. That's right. We have a very special guest with us tonight in the studio. Well, not actually in the studio, via internet. You might know him from his coaching. You might know him from his philosophy. You might know him from his fantastic YouTube channel or podcast. He's got a lot going on. It's Tavian Napier, a.k.a. the Philosopher. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you for being part of this. It's one of these things where as soon as I started this, like about a year ago, thinking, oh yeah, I should get the Philosopher on this show because I've been on your show before, and to me it made sense. So I was like, okay, let's plan it out. But then, like, man, just schedules running into each other and life being how it is. Not the case, but how the hell are you, man?
Busy. Yeah. Like on the business side of things, like recently hit 1,000 subscribers. Now on like Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, having a baby and just closed on a house yesterday.
Oh, so, fuck. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So
damn, buying a house is the worst process ever.
Very stressful.
No, I have, dude, I am full empathy for you right now because that situation is god awful. Having a baby and like becoming a dad and all that stuff, like that's easy stuff. Buying a house is a nightmare.
Yeah, man.
No.
I'm excited about the kid. Buying the house was
no, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. But yeah, that was, man. When I had to buy a house, that was the worst experience ever. However, that's not what we talk about on this show. However, going over top myself again, I do want to pitch at the start of the show kind of what you have going on because, I mean, like I said in the intro, you've got a great YouTube channel. Your podcast seems to be doing great, and you're doing life coaching and stuff like that. So, like, what's on the horizon for you? What's on the cusp? Any new business that you can talk about?
Yes. There's some very slight possibilities and some things that I'm currently slowly working on, which has to deal more with coaching for schools. I am partnered with a high school for a competitive esports league. It's still in the beta phases of things, so that's really cool that I'm becoming a part of that and actually getting to coach kids, which like high school kids. So I get to help them not only create a better discipline for playing competitive gaming, but also help sculpt them for the world of esports when it comes to your personal brand, when it comes to how to conduct yourself via social media. A lot of the things that a lot of people don't think about that actually is just as important as the practice, in my opinion. And then kind of coincide with that meeting tomorrow, actually, with I don't want to say what college just yet, but there is a college here in Michigan that is investing minimum 500,000, maximum or possibly $1 million into an esports league, into like an arena, into hardware, all kinds of stuff, to start like a beta phase of like a what would I call that? Just this project of like creating esports,
like a trial.
Yeah,
room,
exactly. And they're going to run that soon. And so I'm meeting with the director, the person that's been running that. He's been getting a lot of information from me, talking about how I might fit into all that and compensation, things of that nature. So on the horizon, there's a lot of things going on. I've actually been doing some, I guess you'd call it corporate coaching for a big corporation as well.
Okay.
And that's been very fun to do, to learn about a company and teach them things like empathy and that humans aren't robots and they react to things. So it's been kind of cool to do things on the esports side and also doing it on the corporate side as well.
Yeah, dude, you have piqued my interest with that esports from high school to college level. That is the future. That I know, man. That is, to me, in my opinion, that is the level that, for lack of better term, esports. Here's the thing. When I say esports, and this is for the future, for anyone who listens to this show and for anyone who I'm talking to, when I say esports, I don't I will almost never mean it by big companies investing in the top level for any of that to trickle down to anything beneath. I'm not
right.
I'm never going to talk about it that way. What I am going
Right.
to say is like the level that you're having an impact on is the everything at the bottom that needed to have probably been built first before there was that top level of esports.
Yeah,
because it's missing in our culture, and we can't sustain a top level esports. I don't know, like economy, is that the right word? Without all of those steps in between, without
ecosystem.
Yeah, without the ecosystem, there's nothing. There's no roots. Well, there is roots, but it's run by just normal people who run locals. But they're not tapped into any like local economies. They're not tapped into. I mean, not often, I should say. There are some that are and who are doing good work in that, and that there are some small businesses around locals who are making those right investments, I think. But things are moving more towards that way. That was actually kind of one of the reasons why. I'm going in self-pitch mode, aren't I? Fuck. It's one of those. I hate doing it, but like that's like one of the things. Like when I had written the book, I was like, "What if this was in a high school library? What if you could just check this out?" And I had to like look into. I thought about like what, like sending some books to some high schools that have like esports, I guess, after school clubs or school clubs that are esports related. But like to me, that makes sense. Because,
I don't see why not.
But
like, and
no, go ahead.
To kind of go back to your whole like the esports explanation is the way I see it. There's two possibilities when it comes to the whole quote unquote esports is that the individual or individuals can learn to sustain competitive gaming on their own, or because it is an entertainment and because that makes it desired, you're going to have corporations and big companies coming in, and you can either take their money or you can learn to generate your own. My way of approaching it is more so learning how to become a commodity on your own and making it so that if a company does approach you, you aren't taking advantage of, or you have some way of monetizing yourself rather than some other company monetizing for you.
Right.
Because that's like from what I've seen, a lot of the hesitancy is like, oh, these big companies that don't know anything about competitive gaming are hopping in, and they're throwing the money around, and it's becoming inauthentic essentially.
Right.
And I don't think that just because something is esports necessarily means it has to be inauthentic. It can still be very much like specific to the FGC. One of the things that a lot of people love is the personalities of the FGC, and the more people that learn the skills outside of just fighting games, the more you learn how to like commentate, the more you learn how to run events, the more you learn how to acquire sponsorships that align with your morals or beliefs. The more people you have doing that, the better it is. There's college courses that might potentially be made about like people who don't necessarily want to compete, but do want to work in esports because they're fans of competitive gaming one way or another. So they want to be a tech person, a camera person, whatever.
Right. Or even knowing that is an available outlet within the community.
Yeah.
Like,
so rather than having somebody else that's not, a true fan be a cameraman of esports, why not have a person who loves esports be that camera person and make sure they get the shots that a person from that community will love, or whatever other position that you can think of.
Right. No, that's fascinating. I'm intrigued. Teaching those, and also it's something that I'm just thinking of, like talking to high schoolers about, hey, like make sure when you post something on the internet, like you fucking mean it, and like make sure you don't turn into a nightmare person. Just because, man, I don't know if you spend any time on FGC social media, but it is a hellscape. Specifically lately, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The amount of things I see on there from the day to day, it's hard to keep up with, and nor do I want to keep up with it or even give a fuck, man.
I limit myself. I can't. I don't deal with that. It doesn't do anything for me.
It's a nightmare scenario. Like, I mean, I have this slated to talk about later, but I don't really want to talk about it all that much, so I'll just bring it up now. Is that I mean, there was so much stuff that happened just earlier this week. Blow Up Tuesday was capital B, capital T, Blow Up Tuesday. Kind of a lot happened. A lot of people talking about a number of different things, whether it be casuals being kicked off of setups for money matches or people conspiring to make someone fail but actually not being true because it's terrible reporting and everything's actually fine and we don't need to worry about it. All of that shit. But like the thing that I didn't see, all of that shit totally overshadowed Phenom. They all say Phenom, but I say Phenom because I'm from the United States, goddammit. Like, sorry, I know. This is my ignorant ass. Phenom taking fucking Fight Club NRW,
yeah,
with a pocket guile. He's a Necalli main, just has a pocket guile and took out killers in the EU because we know the EU is strong. Obviously, if you saw Evo like I did, a lot of representation there. Like that whole region is strong, and dude's taking it. I mean, it's a ranking event, not huge. I mean, he got 150 points for winning, which is a lot of points in the CPT. But like, damn, with a pocket guile. Yeah. And fucking no one was talking about that, which is like, to me, it makes me so angry to be like, yo, this really cool thing happened this weekend that we could all talk about from like a player perspective. Like, where is he at with his skill level? Where is that whole region at with their skill level? Do we have to worry about them coming events? It's so much to actually talk about there. Instead, we're talking about fucking money matches and people being ignorant on Twitter, and I can't fucking stand it anymore. I'm just, call me a grumpy old man, but I'm just like trying to pick up, being like, hey, let's be productive with the way that we speak to each other, and the rest of the internet being like, fuck you, old man.
Yeah. Well, that ties into another topic that I'm sure we'll jump into later on, but to your point, though, at least very briefly, I want to know your thoughts on the whole situation, because I this is the first time I've heard about it, so I want to know. I mean, I think that's impressive because I know he plays Necalli mainly.
Yeah, I mean, Guile is also a strong character,
right?
And if you look at the matchups where Guile would be strong, like against a Luffy, perhaps, who plays Armika, where you could say, well, it would make more sense to pick Guile versus Necalli in that matchup. The way that that matchup works out in the neutral would be more beneficial towards a Guile, whereas a Necalli. Granted, Necalli, he'd be more comfortable with him, but apparently it doesn't fucking matter because he's just a strong player who can win with any character.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it's just something very interesting to see. But also pairing that with how strong a showing that the EU had at Evo, like a week before. This is crazy to me. How, like, there's so many good conversations to have there. And, like, Phenom is a very good player, clearly, who deserves to have his name out there more so, I would say. Like, he deserves to have a platform. Some might even say that ProblemX deserved to have a platform, who like didn't get the interview after Evo because it ended up being so fucking late. Granted, he did get that WSO a couple days later, where he basically, which is like really what you want of him breaking down the matchup, which I believe that was posted to the subreddit, but if not, you could just probably search, and I probably even share this in the show notes of WSO ProblemX Evo. If you search those words, it'll probably come up. It just gives like a whole breakdown of what happened during the match and what he was thinking. But I've had my eye on him ever since. What major was it in Europe? He did an interview with Matthew Edwards. I posted it a couple days ago. But what he said in it was basically like, the way that he sounded, the way that he was talking about it, he was basically just like, no, I'm really fucking serious about this. I'm a sponsored player now. Like, I have to do shit now. Like, I have to put up because I'm a sponsored player. Like,
right.
And he fucking set his sights and he killed it, man. But this is also, I don't know, kind of off topic, but still good. Eve is a strong scene. Maybe look out for them. Maybe look out for other scenes in general, because from what some people have to say, other communities and other regions are they might train a little better than the U.S. America. Some might say America is whack.
Oh no!
Oh no! Of course, the topic that I'm talking of is RobTV posted a video. Was that this morning? What was the time frame on this, or was this yesterday?
You know what? I'm not sure. He might have posted it to the Reddit today, but I don't know when he published. I follow him pretty closely, so this snuck past me.
Yeah, no, he's definitely worth a follow. Like
12 hours ago.
Highly recommend that. Yeah, so like not even a day ago. Fuck, this was this morning. Going out there making a video. American FGC is whack. What's your gut take on this video?
I agreed with what he was saying. To the short answer, me and I've had him on the show a couple of times because I really like the way he thinks. We think in a similar way. I think he's more brash with how he says things, but that's some people need that. And what he was saying about the FGC versus Japan or other people like that, it was true. People don't want to face that kind of stuff, and I think that any person who might be getting angry just hearing my voice say that might need to actually just reflect on how closely they hold ego. Because if you can't take constructive criticism and possibly acknowledge that maybe Japan overall has a better work ethic or a better practice or a better mindset than we might have, and you're getting offended by that, then perhaps what he's saying is very much so true, and that ego is getting in the way of you even receiving the information that he's saying or that I'm saying.
Yeah, the truth hurts sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you lead with your ego.
Yeah, I've said it before, but your ego does not win you matches. That's not a thing that can happen. It's actually funny that that came up, and we were just talking about the EU scene, but crazy thing happened at Evo, something that I caught. It was actually it was right before Top 64 pools. Gesture of Power versus Happy Medicine. Gesture of Power lost. And immediately, this is during the pools. Like, they could have continued, like, there was matches continuing to happen around them. This was at the setup, because there were 4 setups per pool. Loses out of the tournament. Immediately, right after the match, he loads up the replay. This is during Evo. Like, everyone is watching. There's in fact a lot of other Vega players around there who were also watching and talking about it. Like, fucking M Blizzard was there, who was the Vega player that we sponsored, and they were just looking at it, being like, okay, here's where. Okay, rewind it to this part. Vega can actually do this in this situation. And then they would go into training and replicate that. Like that day, that minute. Like, that dude was over his ego. This dude wears a mask. Gesture of Power wears a mask. And yet, like, over himself, lost, and was like, you know what? This is a learning situation. I'm going to learn from this particular loss in this moment, because I don't care so much. I don't care. And guess what? All the other Vegas and all the other Bisons that were around there also learned, because they were there watching, where it was like, oh, that's the kind of mentality that you need if you actually are trying to be a strong player within the community. It's kind of buck wild.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, for me personally, I know that there's a lot of parallels between, like, fighting games. I love using fighting games as an analogy for anything in life. And I think that applies to pretty much anything you can think of. Like, it's almost common sense. To kind of tie it back to what we're talking about with the FGC, the American FGC being whack. I think that there's a lot of topics to kind of cover in this. I'm going to try to, like, encapsulate a lot of that, but just constructive criticism, like feedback, either self-criticism or feedback from other people, receiving it, being open to it, learning to do it constructively to other people. That's something that we really, really lack in America overall. That's not an understatement by any. I mean, I think that's an understatement. I think that we also, because partly we're a younger and more mixed culture, we don't have the same sort of mentality as Japan has. Which have we talked about Kaizen? Or are you familiar with that term at all?
You talking about the Kaizen master or just Kaizen in general?
No, the philosophy of Kaizen.
we have not. We have not.
Okay, so short version, the philosophy of Kaizen loosely translates to incremental growth every day. This is a philosophy that, and I've talked to people from Japan, Americans that have lived in Japan, and they fully believe this, whether they know the word or just know the culture. The Japanese, on average, have this mentality of always focusing on improving. It's just something, it's the reason why they're stereotypically better at math or smarter at any game that they tend to compete at, whether it be for the long haul or just like in the moment. Usually Japan's going to catch up. Anytime America does something, Japan can catch up because they have the mentality of, okay, this is where they are, or this is where we are right now. This is where we want to be. But by doing that, we're looking at every day being better than we were yesterday. Whereas America, I think that we have this instant gratification kind of thing, and we want to be better right away. And a lot of times our love of ego and spectacles gets in the way of that. So we're super focused on like making sure that we look cool, or we do this thing that's impressive, or it looks like it's skillful, but we're not trying to, in the moment, autocorrect and get better and reflect. Like reflection isn't really part of the American habit. Meditation isn't part of the American habit. People still have this weird view that, there's people in Tibet that meditate and that's for them. But for the average Joe, no pun intended, that's not for them. And that's so far from the truth. Meditation helps anybody. It can be done, for 5 seconds, for 5 minutes, for half an hour, for an hour. And that kind of reflection on a specific topic or in your whole area of your life is just super duper beneficial. And I wish more people would understand that and acknowledge that Japan, one, is an older culture and has matured because they've been around so much longer and have been able to like think more efficiently. But also we need to learn from them rather than trying to just like be better than them. We don't know what they're doing as a whole. We don't understand. We still think it's just some stereotypical genetics thing rather than a culture, rather than a mindset. So I think that until we acknowledge that their mindset is more efficient than ours overall, we can't learn from it, and we're not going to be consistent in beating them. They're going to keep catching up to us. And I'm going to call that now, 10 years from now when we're talking and Japan's still squashing us and we're still focusing on looking really cool and having the most, Twitter followers, I'm going to call it again. I mean, I love America. That's why I'm hard on myself. I'm super hard on myself. And anything that I like, I'm going to be critical of it. But I also think that we have a lot of potential for talent because we're such a mixed bag of cultures and people. We have a lot of potential. We're just not pointing it in the right direction.
Yeah, your story actually reminds me of an interview with a certain Third Strike player I remember reading where he wanted to improve his reaction times, and he looked at what baseball players were doing. And what baseball players were doing at the time was trying to improve their reactions, not just because he was like, they can hit the fastball and it comes so fast, or the decide what pitch is coming at them. They have to be able to see it and react to it. I want to have that kind of reaction. So he looked at what they were doing. What they were training to do was, in all aspects of their life, they were introducing some type of something that they could react to, whether it be, the example that he gives is, like if I'm taking my bike to work, as soon as that light turns green, I'm going to react to it as fast as I can. And by introducing a lot of those tests throughout the day, he generally improved himself to have much better reactions whenever he got into the game. So then that's how he became much better at his reactions. Very well known for his reactions. It's that kind of self-improvement. However, can I go back and maybe prod you on meditation for a moment? I know that's something that you're a big proponent of. And I've only ever really touched on it on this show, but maybe just in general, give us a rundown of maybe if it's during tournament meditation or during practice meditation, like your take on taking meditation into the competitive scene.
So, one, there's a lot of different kinds of meditation. A lot of people think it's just one different kind. So depending on what your intention is, it's important to set your intention. But two, it's important to realize what you want to get out of meditation and what kind you're doing. And I guess also, I'm not like an expert, but I want to share my perspective rather than just saying this is the one and only way.
Well, I mean, I've introduced you as Professor Meditation. You have a doctorate in I'm pretty sure I shared that in the show notes that you are a doctor of meditation philosophy.
Oh, okay.
With a bachelor's in saying Om.
You're very generous.
Go ahead, Dr. Philosopher.
So one example would be that, say you're very anxious, like that historically you have tournament nerves. Mm-hmm. People get nervous, they make mistakes that they normally wouldn't make because they're in a high stress situation, or they feel they're in a high stress situation. So beforehand, what you can do is take some time to yourself, whether you need some earbuds to get quiet or find a quiet place, or even if you can use the sound to your advantage and tune in with that, you set your intention of how you want to play beforehand. So you sit there, give yourself maybe 30 seconds, 5 minutes, however long you think you can take to sit still. And you just can have something in your head saying, I'm going to focus on the match and only the match. My emotions and thoughts that don't deal with the immediate situation have no benefit to me, and it's not important to me.
You got to wrestle with them. You got to take them out of your head.
Right. You can set your mindset. Some people, they need to practice, and this is a practice, so you can't just go into a tournament and expect to be able to do this right away. This is just like execution, where you might be
pro all at once. I can't just know kung fu.
Sadly, it doesn't work that way. The brain is a muscle.
Oh, beans.
But the beneficial side, if you do this consistently, if you just do like 5 minutes a day, you're building this mental muscle. You're building this resiliency in your mind. Mm-hmm. And you're going to do this over time, and you're going to learn that, I have ADD. I was diagnosed with it, but I also struggle with it for a long period of my life, and I still do as an adult. It gets harder if I don't meditate. It gets harder to concentrate if I don't meditate. Or do something that forces me to think about one specific thing.
Right.
But back to my point, though, is that you can tune in on your thoughts. You can tune out thoughts that don't deal with what you want. And there's so many different benefits depending on what your issues or challenges are. Mm-hmm. Tilting is a big issue, and meditation, I believe, helps with that. In between matches, you can just take a couple of seconds. Don't press start right away. Just pay attention to how you're feeling. Take a couple of seconds to breathe. And this is another thing, is that even I notice this in myself. So I damn sure know that other people have this mindset where I'm afraid to close my eyes and breathe because I'm afraid of what other people might think of me. Like, I'm afraid to just meditate for like a good 30 seconds because I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to think I'm some sort of like, weird meditation guy or something stupid, or, oh man, this guy's trying to meditate. What an idiot. Like, it's not that severe for me, and I'll still do it. But like, I have that in the back of my head sometimes, and that's one of the thoughts that I'm pushing aside.
You're surrounded by a lot of people who might be cheering against you, right behind you, in fact.
Right, and that's one of the things that I'm actively pushing out of my mind. I say pushing, that's not the right term for it, but that's one of the terms I'm not trying to focus on. I want to focus primarily on the match. Anytime that you have a thought, like say you're having a match, you drop a combo. As soon as you hone in on, damn it, I dropped that combo that would have killed him. That sentence, that short phrase in your head that you're thinking along those lines, that is 1 to 5 seconds where you're not fully focused on the match at hand. You're in the past. You're not in the present. Mm-hmm. You might think you're in the present, but 100% of your focus is not 100% on the match. It is 50-50, 75-20, but that 10% that you might have lost in brain power could have cost you the match.
Yeah, that can be a huge derailer. It happens to me all the time. Where
Yeah, and it cascades.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the big problem, because you drop one thing, or the worst, the absolute worst, at least for me, that I need to really focus on to get out of my head, is when I know the thing that I should have done, and I'm like a split second late on it. And I think to myself, man, I swear on my mom, I tech that throw. I swear to God, I tech that throw. Or like, oh man, my execution just wasn't right on that EXSPD. And I know that an EXSPD was going to work. And I got thrown for it, in fact. I just did it too late. Or just something like that, where I'm like, I knew the thing to do. But that's the thing. It's already rolling in my mind of, I'm already saying that to myself of, motherfucker, I tech that throw. But it doesn't matter, because I'm already eating a mix-up, because Cammy threw me in the corner, and now I have to guess. Because throw loops are still a thing. Or at least like false throw loops. Anyway, but like that, to your point, to your credit, I just want to give a little credence to that, in like recognizing when that happens and ways to stray away from that, because it's a thing that a lot of people might not choose to do, or recognize, or even recognize, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and exactly the point. A lot of Japanese players, if you look at their reaction when they drop a combo, they don't really, it's almost like they expect to screw up, or they're okay with screwing up, which I would argue, yeah, they are, because mistakes are going to happen. Nothing's ever 100% perfect. Why stress on it? You know, what is like, you can answer this question if you'd like, but what does stressing on that situation that happened 5 seconds ago, how does that thought help you currently?
It's never gratifying. It's never gratifying.
Yeah.
No matter how much you think it is, of like, well, I'll wake up the next time with that EXDP, because I knew I wanted to EXDP, but it didn't come out last time because my execution.
Right. So something more productive could be, you know, I dropped that combo. Next time that situation arises, I have to make sure that I'm more conscious of my execution. That's just one generic example. That's something that a Japanese person, or a Kaizen-minded person, I'll call it, would do. But you kind of couple that with you know what you just told me happens to you. You couple that with someone who is kind of focused on protecting themselves. What happens is that people will, you know, if they're being watched, or even if they're not, they'll justify why they lost. And that doesn't help them. It's like, oh, I lost because I dropped this combo, I would have won. Or, oh, I lost because this person did a cheap tactic. Or, oh, I lost because this character's OP. That does not help you. That does not help you get better. That doesn't help your opponent learn. Your opponent's not going to get any respect, or given you any respect for making this excuse. Again, you know, kind of teetering back and forth between meditation and Japan, is that they don't make excuses for their losses. They just learn from them and get better. Or any person that's growth minded does this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say just Japan, but any person who's wanting to win and not worried about what they look like when they lose or win, they're doing that. And then similarly, people who are aware of that are actively trying. It's a continual practice to not protect your ego. So meditation helps with this. Meditation helps you be aware that you're even doing it, because most people, it's like Yomi. They don't know that they don't know they're doing it. Like, it's so far pushed back that it's just their default settings that they have right now, and they have to reprogram their brain. But before they can even reprogram it, they have to be aware that, like, they're doing all of these non-productive things and thinking these non-productive thoughts. Meditation helps with that. It helps you be aware. You can just sit there quietly and pay attention to your thoughts and be like, I thought that? Like, that's kind of messed up. You know, you'd be surprised. And then eventually you learn how to see your thoughts and not take place in them. And then you see your thoughts and you don't judge them. And that's incredibly hard to do. Because once you start paying attention to your own thought process, you're going to want to judge some of the things, because you want this end result, and this thought that you're thinking is the exact opposite of that. You know, it's like, I'm on a diet. Why am I holding this cheeseburger in my hand? I'm such a fatty. Like, goddamn, I hate myself. And it's like, whoa, I just beat myself up. I'm insulting myself. Is that making me feel better? No, it's not. Now I really want to eat this sandwich to make myself feel better. And this negative feedback loop just continues. And it's called a crazy eight. But that's a tangent.
It's an insider term. Only doctors of philosophy would know that.
Exactly.
All right. So then let me look 4D chess right now. Follow me down this path on this journey.
Let's do it.
Because you said something there that I think that we can tie this in historically, right? Where, and this is still something that happens in America, especially at the local levels of, you're the top player, or you have certain tech, so you don't share it so that you can continue to be the top player instead of honing the other players around you to be able to beat you or beat that particular tactic that you're using.
Yes.
Because really, we're not local stage anymore. It's a global stage like never before. It's very easy for these top players to get the travel expenses to come over here, or vice versa, to travel over there and compete against these international players who are doing that, who are teaching people how to beat them. So then that makes them a better player overall. Now, I bring that up because let's put it this way. Maybe you are the top player in your local. What does that do to the other players who attend your local? You continue to beat them with the same stuff, and maybe they don't have the wherewithal to replicate that situation, or they don't really have the verbiage or the knowledge or maybe the technical vocabulary to really even explain to themselves exactly how they're getting beaten. Let's just say It's raw footsies. Like it's just that specific range, but they're not seeing it. They can't see the specific range because they've never been tuned in enough to notice that you're actually standing 2 pixels outside of the crouching medium kick instead of 2 pixels inside, which is where you're trying to stand or where you're trying to press a button. But they don't see it, and you don't ever tell them that, right? They're going to get frustrated. They might not come back to your local. I know for a fact there are locals where if someone knows that a certain player is coming to that weekly, they won't attend because they think, I'm not going to win because that player is going to be there. Why should I feed the pot when I could spend my time getting better, like through ranked or any other reason? But like, I know I'm not going to beat that player this weekend. So I haven't been able to, and I'm not going to take the risk because that's like $20 or whatever, and travel time. I just don't want to deal with it. That's a local killer. That's a local killer. And even worse is that local is financially relying on all of those players showing up and continuing to show up to continue to be a local.
Yep.
So it's scene killing in a way because specifically that local doesn't have outside sponsorship or bringing money in any other way, or maybe they are bringing money in some other ways so that they can financially be sustainable, but they need that player base to actually be sustainable. So you're not only killing yourself in the global scale, you're also killing your locals at a local scale for not trying to bring other players up with you. It's this me first that does, without even it's not even like a trickle down economics. It's a I will stay at the top economics, and that's dumb as shit. It just won't work.
Here's the thing: is that's not sustainable for one of the reasons that you listed above. And I mean, depending on the goals of this individual that's doing that, it's partially the big fish, little pond mentality, because all they're doing is they're beating the people in their area. But I guarantee you, because they're doing that, because they're hiding their tech and their advice and their wisdom from the people around them, his community, he's shortchanging himself because no one's ever discovering what he's doing, he or she's doing. No one's ever challenging those things and forcing him to get better. He's going to get bopped as soon as he steps out of his community. And he's going to have that same reaction where he's like, why would I go there? I'll just stay in my community and bop them. But obviously that's not sustainable. So what happens is either they're forced to learn from other people, let go of their ego, because someone who's doing that more than likely has some ego issues. They want to win. That's all they're focused on. They're not focused on getting better. They're focusing on winning. And if they were a little bit smarter, they'd realize that being selfless is actually being selfish, because the more that you help people get better, the more they poke holes in your theory. The more they poke holes in your theory you're fighting, the better you can get, because now you have to think higher. You have to think higher level. Mm-hmm. So instead of this person continuing to elevate his whole community and him getting better, he's actually plateauing. And more than likely, unless he has some sort of mentor or teacher that's helping him out, he's not going to get better. But most people probably won't want to work with this person. It's just not sustainable, in my opinion.
No, right with you. And I think that there's actually other good examples of this, of when players have stepped out and made players around them better, can actually lead to some really exciting moments. And my favorite story that exemplifies this is actually, I think I've talked about it on this show before, but fuck if I know, it's been a year, is Alex Valle versus Bonchan. Fuck, was it 2015 or was it 2016? I can't recall the exact year. But Bonchan Sagat versus Alex Valle's Hugo. Terrible matchup for Hugo. But when Alex saw in the bracket that he was going to play against Bonchan, he explains this in one of his Twitch streams where he's like, okay, before I even get to the matchup, I have to say this. I knew he was coming up in my pools, so I took Flo and I sat him down at a set in my room, or maybe it was Flo's room, I don't know. And he played against Flo like for hours. And if he beat him, he was like, hey, actually, I'm doing this, so do this to counter what I do. And within that 2 or 3 hours, however long it was, of him making Flo a better Sagat to beat his Hugo, showed that incredible match between Alex Valle and Bonchan, where Valle stomps Bonchan in a terrible matchup. But it was because he made his friend better and made him, allowed him to beat him, right? Mm-hmm. He took another player, made that player better at that matchup so that he in turn could be better, and it showed off in this epic example of everyone points to that matchup and says that is a great matchup because it's an underdog, but it also is missing the story. No, there was a lot of work put into that, but not just on Alex's part. He also helped someone else get better to then make himself, he did the selfish thing, right? Mm-hmm. The actual smart selfish thing, as you would say, to make himself better in that way. But that's just one example I like to throw out. I just love bringing up that matchup because go watch that set if you haven't already. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a great indicator. I think for me, I keep saying poke holes in your theory. One, because I read a lot of books about this kind of stuff, but historically, a lot of scientists and philosophers will share their theories about how things might work with the intention of saying, hey, poke holes in my theory so that I can strengthen it. Find where I'm wrong. Find where my play style is wrong or not optimal for the situation so that I can strengthen it. But that takes putting yourself out there and letting go of your ego.
It's what scientists
super beneficial,
do.
though. Yeah. That's smart. It's open-minded scientists, people who are willing to be wrong or fail. Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
It's actually funny that you point that out. Someone was asking me the other day, a newer player who's actually a very strong player, not necessarily going to name names, although I would love to. I just didn't. I didn't know before. That's just something that's coming up. I didn't ask for permission to talk about it, so I won't. No. But I'll say what he said to me was he had someone propose a business opportunity within the FGC, and what he was worried about, he was like, well, I'm worried that this might fail. And I said to him, of course it's going to fail. Just go into it with the mindset that that is totally a possibility, because if you do that, then you won't be afraid to fail. But if you hadn't failed, then you wouldn't have learned all of these other lessons in the meantime. This is your first step into this FGC business kind of stuff. This is the first time you're going to put yourself out there or just try and work on a project. There will be it will absolutely not do whatever the stated purpose is. I almost guarantee that. But at the same time, it's going to have all of these other benefits that you like. I don't know what they are right now, and you don't know what they are right now. But it's going to make you a better person and a better player. Like overall, like you cannot be afraid to fail. Like I feel like there's so many good examples of people not putting themselves out there or even just like sharing matchups, right? Like anytime, here's like the killer to me that always, really grinds my gears is that when players, because you've done this as well, but like in New Challenger or anytime anyone posts like a matchup of here, like help me get better in this, like just point, like someone give me notes on my matchup, but it's a set of them winning the matchup. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what do you want me to do with this? Show me where you lose. I will help you there, but like, and I can probably help you on a couple instances where you win, but that's not a good example. Don't share the matchups where you win. I don't give a fuck about you winning to help you. Like, right. Show me where you lose. There's where you're actually going to learn. Those are the good matchups.
I agree. I've had to learn it the hard way, I think. That was like last year. I think I was talking to Penguin when he used to play Fong back in the day.
He still plays. I saw him at Evo. He still plays Fong. Fong.
Oh, okay. All right. He's just on a low. I haven't seen him like doing anything lately.
He's playing a lot of DBZ and he's playing a lot of Fortnite.
Okay. I play a little DBZ.
That's kind of his thing. But yeah, he was at Evo. He was still playing Fong. Played him in 4 at Evo because they just had that set up in their room. And this is definitely an aside. But I was in a room where they were playing Street Fighter 4, and someone else in the room was like, it's actually really joyful. Like, it was a very like joyful experience to watch Joe relearn like how to play 4. Like of me being like, oh yeah, I have to option select that. And then the next time doing that, or like just relearning like all the little things are like, oh yeah, you standing medium punch, you can't beat that button, and then just doing a whole match of staying medium punch and winning. Like, check this button out, bop, you get Ric Flaired, bitch, in the chest, let's go. Like, just joyous moments of relearning things. But definitely an aside. He's still playing Fong. But go ahead with your story. I'm sorry for derailing that one.
To go back a little bit, I think it's just a good analogy kind of outside of fighting games. That's even if you haven't played this game, you can probably relate to it because this game is everywhere, which is the Dark Souls analogy. It's pretty easy to see where it's going. But if you've ever heard of or played Dark Souls, you know in this game you're going to die. Unless you're experienced in this game already, there's very minimal chance that you're going to get through without dying. The whole point of this is to teach you and to strengthen you and to get you used to failure. And life, fighting games, anything around fighting games works the same exact way. You need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but get comfortable with failing. Get comfortable with putting yourself out there and being willing to fail. Because if you do that, you're going to learn that, oh, I didn't know this dude was hiding right here, ready to jump my shit. Like, okay, now I know next time I'll be prepared. I'll do this. Every time you fail, you make that a learning experience. But you can't be afraid of failure. You have to put yourself out there. You're never going to beat Dark Souls if you don't continue to die and see what happened. Continue to strengthen yourself. You level up along the way, both mentally and literally with perks and equipment, and you gain new things along the way that you keep with you. You get more resources, you get more equipment, and you keep leveling up. You keep failing, but you basically fail forward. And I think that that analogy tends to relate with a lot of people. It's something that's super understandable. I think that RPGs in general are a great metaphor for life, but Dark Souls in particular. I
fucking love Dark Souls.
Oh, God.
It's so good. I actually, for whatever reason, this is definitely another aside, but I was reminded of, like, I just got on a Demon Souls kick, where I was like, I want to play some Demon Souls. It was like a little bit after the servers shut down for Demon Souls, and for whatever reason, I was like, well, it's just been so long since I played that game. Let's check this out. Because I actually played Demon Souls before Dark. I actually didn't want to play Dark Souls because I was like, it's all one level. I want my levels like in Demon Souls, like a old man curmudgeon like I typically am. And my friend bought it for me, and he was like, hey, fuck you. And I'm like, well, fuck you. And then Dark Souls is a really good game. Y'all should play Dark Souls. It's really good. And it totally teaches you how to fail and like deal with massive loss. Like huge loss. Sometimes where you're like, oh God, I lost the experience points that I use in this game to actually level up. I've spent 2 hours and literally not progressed at all. That's something that you can think in your head, but you actually have progressed in that you've learned mechanically how to control. Whereas like there might, like you can spend hours in that game of like there not being any stated result. You could get no further. You could end with what you started with. There could be no progress, except unless you notice like within yourself that you have progressed as a player. And it's actually not, like I've actually never heard someone say that before. I don't think I watch enough Dark Souls / fighting game players to have heard that analogy before. But that's super apt, because in fighting games there's absolutely no, I mean, there kind of is a progression of like you can get silver, gold, platinum rank. You can go up in rank, but also there can be settings where you don't progress at all, and
especially
in fact
if you don't set your
feel like
intentions.
And feel like you've gone back in progression, because it's like, I was a gold, now I'm a silver. Like I've gotten worse. Where it's like, you can think that, but you'd be wrong, and you'd be focusing on the wrong thing. You should be focusing on how you have improved, or ways that you can improve by looking at how you failed. No, that's a good analogy. I'm going to steal that.
Thank you.
Mostly because I love Dark Souls.
There you go. A motivational picture or something. Yeah.
Prepare to Die edition. Street Fighter V Prepare to Die edition.
There you go.
But no, I think that that could be a good wrap up to this. Is there anything else you wanted to talk? I mean, we started off with this. By the way, topic of discussion is RobTV's video on the American FGC is whack. Kind of spun off a little bit of a tangent there. Overall, though, I'd say that the video is good mess. It goes off on a couple of tangents there, maybe a little bit of a humble brag, and I can see where people might want to criticize maybe the way that he says some certain things, but I don't think at the heart of the story, I don't think that he's wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with him, and I definitely think he made the title to be somewhat divisive, because that's how you get people's attention. You kind of spark some emotion in them. Either they're gonna be like, yeah, I agree, let me check this out, or what, this guy is an asshole, let me look at this real quick. Right. Either one of those two things is very polarizing. But you listen to the video, and obviously he seems very passionate about it. I really have a lot of I think that he's gonna do well. He has the right mentality. He has a winner's mentality. He knows that he has to keep grinding to get better, putting himself out there, losing, not caring what other people think about him. Like, he has a lot of the things that I think are going to help him be a high level player. I think that he's going to get up there with Daigo. It might be a while. He has to put his time in. He's still pretty young, but it could be sooner rather than later. I think that what he's saying, I agree with him. I not too much more to add there.
I think the only thing that I would want to say about this video is to separate it from casual play.
Yes.
Because I feel like there is that, like, by the way, totally value in just enjoying these games casually. Like, that is separate from this conversation, and I can see how it can get misconstrued of like, I just want to like play and have fun, and I don't necessarily care all too much about like really grinding and becoming the best. Like,
right,
totally, people in that position, totally fine to have that opinion. Like, that's A-okay. And it's okay to feel like you just want to be a casual fighting game player. Like, that's totally, like, these games are fully enjoyable with that in mind.
They are video games.
They are video games, right? They are games. You should have fun playing them. But at the same time, like, something that I thought of is like, specifically with this, like, you could also be a competitive player and also play casually for fun. Like,
yes,
it can be a separate mental thing, right? Like, every time that LeBron James picks up a basketball is not solely to be competitive.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. So I don't know if I told you this, but I started FGC here in Kalamazoo, and we meet every week. And primarily, the two things that I'm doing is I'm either teaching people how to play the game, teaching them about frame data or other, simple things that a lot of people miss or don't fully understand that can help them be better, or I'm playing characters that I don't tend to play to help my knowledge. So I'm playing and it's fun, but I'm also playing with the intention of getting better. Right. Like from a competitive standpoint, but I'm forcing myself to play characters that like I know I'm going to drop their combos like all the time. And that's a little bit annoying, but I'm like, oh man, I finally did this combo. It still feels really rewarding because it's not the character that I've been playing for like the last 2 years or something. So it's still very fun. It's still very casual, but it's still in my mind me challenging myself. So in some way competitive. So yeah, you can definitely have the casual. But still, if you want to get better, you can find some other way to do that if you're playing against people who are at a lower skill level than you.
Right. Yes, that is true. Very true. And again, just wanted to bring that up in case you were the listener who is someone who listened to this RobTV video and was like, nah, fuck that, man. I just like, why do you gotta be so serious? We're like, get it totally fine. Like, don't sweat it. He's not saying that you're whack. You just enjoy the game. It's fine.
Yeah. And don't be personally insulted because you're an American that he's saying that America is whack. I mean, it's easier said than done if you're already offended, but understand that more than likely what he's saying comes from the intention of love for his country and for his FGC. Yeah. He wants it to do better.
I am right alongside him. I would join that army. I would sign up today if they were taking people to submit to that. I will be on the front lines of that army.
Geef's army. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Geef Nation's on the rise. Not really. They need to put him back in the game in season 4. That's the side. When I say that, all right, I have to get real. I've just made a very flippant joke about Zangief not being strong in Street Fighter, but I have to somewhat redact that and say there are things about him that are not great at all. However, he does have the ability to, like, once he gets in, can really make his opponent feel oppressed. So if you find yourself on the receiving end of a Zangief, and you think, no way is he like low tier, no way is he like bust ass in this game, or it's like, okay, no, that Zangief did something to you. He hurt you bad. I get that. Like,
I love fighting Zangief.
Oh, he's so much fun. He's so much fun.
That if you lost, it's because you were predictable or he read you like a book.
Yeah.
Or you just were like not paying attention and doing dumb stuff.
That too.
Getting hit by his big limbs.
Yeah, that too. Like, I saw the stand hard punch and I threw out like a standing normal and he just ate it up. Where it's like, no, you just sweep that.
I love getting air SPD'd. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me if I'm a masochist, but it's like, that dude just read me like a book. Like, he knew I was going to do that. But then I love when he air SPDs and I don't do it because I'm like, yes, I was hoping he would do that, and now I'm going to punish the hell out of you. Like, it's just a satisfying fight, like of low tier Fong versus Zangief. It's
no, as a Zangief main, when I go for an air SPD and they don't jump, or even worse, when I go for it and then a second later they jump. That has happened to me a number of times where, like, I knew what they wanted to do before they even did it.
Right read, wrong timing. I've done that a few times, more so in Dragon Ball than in this. But
or times where I do that and I'll look at them and be like, "You just blocked? I can't believe you just blocked!" Like I will give them props for being so brave to just hold down back. I'm like, you're holding down back?
One of my friends calls me a wild boy when I play the game. I guess that means I don't like obey the laws of the game sometimes. Like, there's certain things where I know the frame data, but I will still challenge it.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't care. I might as well play Ken. Like, I'm born to play Ken. I always have until 5. I don't know why I don't.
iDrop had a good quote, something along the lines of, if you think that my willingness to press a button is based solely on you being at plus frames, then you're fucking wrong.
That is the motto of Ken.
Like, you do not know me, because like plus frames, and I've seen him do it too. Like, someone puts himself at plus frames and he's just like, I don't know, crouch and medium kick, and it fucking worked. Because it's like, okay, yeah, no, I get it. because you blew them up for trying to do something dumb, or at least tried to take advantage of the situation because they thought they had the advantage, which that's another level of mind games that not going to get into. Now that we're reaching the hour mark of this recording, I have to get into the final question business. Just to cut, because we have other topics here, but I don't necessarily feel like talking about them. It's mostly just Twitter bullshit that I don't think is really worth all that much talking about. But before we go into final questions, is there any other thing you'd like to wrap up before I hit you with the questions?
Maybe we can talk about this more in the future, but I like it kind of pertains to the Daigo thing. Basically him saying the game is simple and
all right, to set this up for it, I'll just set this up for everybody because I'll let you have your piece because it is something. I agree, this is something worth talking about. But what Daigo said in an interview was the simplicity of the game allows players of the regions that traditionally don't get represented in Street Fighter to compete. I think that's a good thing. In a very long interview by Unicorn, but spelled weird. But go ahead.
Yeah. For multiple reasons, I think that the simplicity of the game is a good thing. Now, one, keep in mind there are many other games that you can go play. So, like, if Street Fighter isn't your jam because it is too simple, then go play Skullgirls or something else. Like, no disrespect, but there's other games. Go play 4. Create a community. But simplicity of a game does not mean dumbed down, and a lot of people get that confused. The game has easier execution, easier not frame traps, but links, things of that nature, and there's ample information out there, and that's a good thing because it's a lower level of entry, but that does not take away from all the mind games, all the Yomi, all of that stuff. You know, you're not going to beat a Daigo just because the game is simpler, unless it's like something so simple that skill is taken out of the equation altogether and it's just luck. That's not going to happen. Right. There's still understanding the way the rules of the game work, understanding frame data, all this other stuff. So just because that on the surface level the game is simpler, it doesn't mean that the overall complexity of the game is taken away. There's still so much in there that is thought about. There's so much brain power going on in the game, and that's a good thing. It gets people. It's a gateway game to other fighting games or to future Street Fighters or older Street Fighters. Like, I don't want to go too long, but there's still a Melee community. Like, I don't know why or how that's still a thing. That game is like 20,000 years old. Like, right. I guess I don't want to hear the excuse of this game is old, so we can't still play it. If you like 4, go play 4, work on a community, go do that thing. But for me, I like how simple this game is. It has helped me get better at other fighting games, give me a higher appreciation for other fighting games, and I've been able to teach other people this game and get them into it and also get them into other fighting games as a result. So I just think people need to be more careful about what they're saying when they say that Street Fighter is so simple and brain dead, because I 100% disagree with that.
It's reductive.
Yes. Yeah. There's certain things that, Ryu's parry that I know Corey Gaming did a thing on. Right. And I do kind of agree with that. But for the most part, it's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're listening to the show, you haven't seen that, it's a good explanation on like execution and like hype moment. Does like make hype moments? Does taking away that execution make the game like ultimately worse or lead to less hype? Very good video, very good channel, by the way, which you should all watch. But no, like, I mean, we could get into it more. Really, I have those times just to value your time for coming out and talking. But if you want to talk longer on this, you go right ahead. Because I think that, I mean, yeah, the interview is good. It's an interview on Unicorn by Dustin Steiner. He's been around the industry for a long time. So he knows what questions he's asking. But yeah, that leading quote was misconstrued, I would say, through a lot of different communities and a lot of different players. I think Mena had a very cutting thing to say. Well, not cutting thing to say, but just a very, he was on the defensive on this. And I guess I'll read his quote now just to kind of give the the counterpoint, or at least how people took it and how it's being reacted to within the community. Menace says, my opinion on Daigo's statement, and then he lists the statement. I believe the main reason more regions are getting to shine, it's because Street Fighter is finally being taken seriously in regions outside of Japan and the United States, not because Street Fighter V is a simple game. I believe if a more complex Street Fighter game is released with the same Capcom Pro Tour incentive or more, we would still see a lot of regions diversity and have champions from around the globe. And that is competitors' response, I feel. Because the stakes are much higher now. They're way higher than they used to be. Even for like the Street Fighter 4 days, the stakes are super high. There's a lot more money within the community right now, even just for Street Fighter. And I'll even go back to your point and agree with you that yes, I actually think that Street Fighter 5 is a really easy game to teach people how to play. It's a good game at that, I think. Because of how simple it can not see that I'm using this verbiage again, but I don't think that's the correct verbiage. But how easy it is to get certain ideas across, and how easy it is to execute the controls. You can execute the controls, but you can't execute fundamentals, right? Ease of execution does not relate to ease of fundamentals, maybe, is the phrase I'm looking for. I don't know.
I think Mena makes some valid points. Like, his whole focus is more so on the international players being better because the game is taken more seriously. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think that there has been more exposure to the game. I want to say that some of those things go hand in hand. I don't think that is specific to international players. I think it's just a new generation of players in general, not in any specific location.
Right.
Because I know that a lot of people were playing this game in different areas already. But there is it's kind of a mixed bag, because there's there's an access of information. Like Street Fighter 4 Ultra, towards the tail end of Ultra, like there's just an abundance of information on that game, but like unless you're already into it, it was really hard to digest all of that.
Yeah.
For the most part, 5 has kept it very simple and hasn't really introduced too many new features into the game, except for new features with new characters. They've introduced new V triggers, but it's just a second V trigger. Whereas, like, I think that Ultra introduced like the red focus attack.
Yeah.
It was that wasn't initially in the game, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Which that is as simple by itself is kind of simple, but the way it was used was just like ridiculous. And the level of execution required to do that was even more ridiculous. So it took more time for newer players to get into that game. Because I got into the game at the tail end, and I was like, I didn't even know how, I don't say how bad I was, but I didn't know how little skill I had in that game. Like, I mean, I knew that I wasn't that great at it, but it was just like, I started watching more videos, and when I got better at Street Fighter 5, I went back and watched some Street Fighter 4. Like, you know, my execution was better. I could understand more concepts more, and I was like, wow, this game was like super in depth. Like, there was a lot of this stuff to this game. And you can go back to Third Strike, was, wow, there's a lot of stuff to this game. The level of skill required to this game, like, it would have taken me years to get that good. You know, like years and years and years. Whereas Street Fighter 5, I kind of felt like I skyrocketed with certain concepts, but there was also more tools. Joe Monday, if you guys haven't read that, or not Joe Monday, but Geef's Gym. I call it
Joe Monday. Who's that asshole?
You created it, so technically your resources definitely helped me out. You know, Gutex, reading some of his books. Mm-hmm. There was just a lot more like theory fighting type stuff. There was people like at the beta just sharing information. The game kept it pretty bare bones, so it wasn't focused on, like, when it first came out. If you bought the game when it first came out, you were basically forced to just get better at the game because there wasn't like no storyline. There was nothing.
That's kind of all you had.
Yeah, so people who got the game like day one and were playing it, the people who are still playing it are probably better because there was less focus on the casual. Like I knew from the day that they released it that they were focused. Like, well, on one side you could say it was lazy, but on the other side they were focused on esports from day one. Like they knew what they were going to do. I don't have any doubt in my mind. Like it got a lot of shit. It got a lot of like flack because the game released so weird, but they were 100% focused on the whole Capcom Pro Tour and like the esports thing. And I think that I wish I had the numbers to back this up. I would love to look this up, but I would say that a lot of where their promotions and money came from would be from that. They got on Evo last year. Was on what? Was it ESPN, or no TBS? Yeah, ESPN. Okay, yeah. Like that's not something to just scoff at. That's a big deal for the gaming community and for Capcom. Mm-hmm. You know, they're making tons of deals. So like it's a bit of a tangent, but this game, because it was so simple, they could commentate easier and explain these ideas a little bit simpler. So like the level of exposure that this game got to a different kind of audience was pretty ridiculous. And I don't think something as an in-depth as Street Fighter 4 would have done as well. It wouldn't have been as received as well, in my opinion. Like I just don't think it would have done that because there's so much to break down. Like how do you explain like this red focus cancel into this combo link into this option select? There's just so much stuff to explain to the layman. It's really hard to do. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, Capcom is a business, and you have to keep in mind that retention, like player retention, is important. So how do you do that when obviously the community, when you have people like who we just talked about that want to hold their information, like the good players and communities that don't want to share that, you have a lot of those people who do that. They just bot players and take the money and go. How do you keep players coming back if a game is so hard? Like as mainstream as Street Fighter, you know, you look at Skullgirls, it's not that big of a community. It's a great game, but it's not huge. The only game, only other fighting game that's as popular right now is Dragon Ball. And look how simple of a concept that game is. Like it's very in depth, but like people harp on auto combos still. They don't understand the level of complexity that this game has once you understand the general mechanics of how to play the game.
Yeah, the mechanics are fairly simple.
Right. But the more I learn in this game, the more I'm like, oh, wow, like there's so much to it. And then I'm watching like Goichi and Leffen do that crazy fight. Like there's this, you can still acknowledge how much skill is required to play these games. And unless you can do that yourself, unless you can like watch Leffen and Goichi or Daigo and Takedo and Punk and all these high level players, unless you can do what they can do and you can beat those players, I don't think anybody has any right to complain about how simple a game is or is not. I'm super adamant on that. Like simplicity does not negate like complexity or skill or like the mind games that go into the game. You know, chess is pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah, like you know how every character, like the chess characters don't move. There's no patch for the rook. They don't have new movesets. It's been the same for the last like so many years. But there is so much complexity to that game, as simple as it may or may not be. So.
Yeah, no,
that's kind of my soapbox.
Yeah, no, I am in full agreement. And I think that is a good. You touched back on some of the things we talked about earlier. I think that's a good way to wrap it up. I think that's a good wrap up topic. Well said.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, because this is the first time on this show, which to me is still bonkers. It's been a fucking year of of just missing dates, not being available, but. I have to ask you the question that I ask every guest on their first time on the show, and it starts out like this 2-part question. The first question is, what is your favorite normal attack in any fighting game?
Okay. I have to go with Jan Lee's Dragon Kick from DOA.
Ooh, okay.
It is so satisfying. Unblockable. Oh, my God. It's a good move.
All right. Good call. Any other reason why that particular move?
Oh, yeah, no. So one, he screams like Bruce Lee after he does it, like his little animation after it connects. Like Jan Lee does this like Bruce Lee type of step, and I love Bruce Lee, mind you. So I already that's pretty high up there. But just the impact of it, like the dude does like a backflip when you hit them in the face. Like you kick them square in the face. A flying dragon kick in the face, they backflip. It's unblockable. They have to dodge it. It just feels, it's satisfying when you hit it because it it comes from like a mile away. Like you can clearly see it happening. And any person who does not block that, it just feels so good because you hear him go, "Watcha!" And like he does the stance and the back walk. It just, the overall thing of it is great. I didn't think that was gonna pop in my head, but after like 2 seconds, I was like, oh yeah, no, definitely.
No, clearly that. No, I can get on board with that. Something specifically where if you hit them with it, they fucked up. Yeah. And also you get that gratifying, like, oh, look at that. It just looked so violent. And you get that swagger with it at the end. I can get on board with that for sure.
Yes. 100%.
Definitely. All right. Good answer. So now comes the second part of this question. What is your favorite combo in any fighting game?
That's a hard one.
There's so many to choose from. There's so many combos out there.
I feel like there's still more combos for me to like learn about. I'm very rudimentary
about.
Yeah, exactly. Shit.
And it doesn't have to be a combo that you yourself can perform.
Yeah, I don't think it would be one. I was thinking like lightning loops or something from Marvel 3.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Because I have a high respect for that combo. It's not like anything super spectacular, but it's hard. First off, I feel like it's going to change in the future, but I'm going to go with lightning loops because that's one of the combos I'm still trying to learn to this day. I love Zero for some reason in Marvel and even in Infinite.
That game. He's so good.
Yeah. And that was the fighting game that I learned how to play on a fight stick and like really got a little bit more serious. And still, I still to this day, I can't quite perform lightning loops. So it's one of the combos that I want to do before I die. So I would have to say lightning for now. I wanted to change. I'm going to like simmer on that for maybe next time I'm on the show or something.
No. That's cool. Those are fun combos. I like Sentinel fly on fly combos or Doom. Doom loops are fun in that game.
Magneto.
Yeah, man. I respect the Magneto combos, but just for me, not for me. Like I like when you hit him that many times with heavy. It's like I can understand that feeling of why that would feel pretty good to execute. But I like the big boys. I like the big boys that hit big. Ending a combo in Meteor Smash or something like that. With Hulk. Does that so much fucking damage.
Supreme.
It's so ridiculous.
The giant crunch berry that she hits you with, that's pretty great.
Oops, all berries.
Yes.
No, great game. People should play it. A lot of really fun execution. Even like MODOK. Yeah, man, that game has fun combos. Yeah, that game has fun combos. I can get down with that.
It does.
Good answer. All right, that wraps it up. That is the final question. We had some good answers. Thank you, Dr. Philocypher, for coming on the show with doctorate in philosophy. No, I joke. Thank you for coming on the show. One last pitch of where people can find you and what you've got going on.
So again, my name is Philocypher, but it's spelled PHILOCYPHER. So basically you type that in, you can find me on most of the things. So youtube.com/the Philocypher, Twitter as well. If you go into like iTunes or Stitcher or even Spotify, you just type in FGC. I should be one of the first ones that pop up. You'll see my ugly mug on there. And you can check out the podcast. It's personal development and fighting game related. You know, I have a lot of guests on the show. I've had Gutex, James Chen, RobTV's been on a couple of times. Cool Kid, who shouts out to him. I'm trying to get him back on the show right now because he did great on Evo. But that's mainly what I do. I also do coaching as well. Like, so I call it performance coaching, life coaching. But I help people get out of their own way, help them reach the goals that they have, and help them discover their goals. So if you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter. Probably is the fastest way. I'll respond to you on there. Tavian Napier is my real name, so you can find me on Facebook if you want to add me that way. And I think that's all of the things that I can think of. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on the show, and anyone listening, like, thank you guys for checking it out. I appreciate it.
Oh, it was a pleasure having you on. And again, a long time coming, and I'll probably end up on your show within the next couple weeks or so. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's some topics that we have to talk about. So
I have a couple notes here of things we should probably dig into more, but that's for another day. We'll do that one on your show.
Right.
Clearing the mental stack, for instance. But all right, folks, that'll do it. Again, you can find me at Super Joe Monday on Twitter or Joe_Monday on Reddit. Or you can just hit me up at Reddit SF, which is the official Twitter account of the fucking subreddit that our Street Fighter runs. But anyway, that's a show, folks. We'll be back every Thursday with a show on hot topics for you. What's going on the front page of our Street Fighter. Other than that, look forward to tournaments on Mondays and Fridays. Mondays on the East Coast, Fridays on the West Coast. But until then, folks, take care. We'll see you next time.